I'm at my wit's end and I desperately need any advice anyone could offer. This might be a little long, but I want to give as much context as possible. So my old roommate recently moved out to move in with her boyfriend, and I'm already missing her so much given the current circumstances. My new roommate, who we'll call Jan, moved in a few weeks ago. I met her on this roommate app that I've met all my former roommates on with no problems, and some I even still keep in touch with. I asked her all the same questions I've asked previously that have landed me with great roommates, and she seemed to be on the same page in the way we both want to live as roommates, and in a shared space. I thought she was perfect, so I extended her the offer and she moved in. Important to note that even before she moved in, I met her in person after our FaceTime call, so she could see the place. And we went out for a couple of drinks to get to know each other, and we got along great, and no outward red flags. The first night went fine, and I came home late from a work event, and she was chilling in the living room. I made sure she was settling in okay and answered any questions and went to bed. So I felt good about the decision. Then the second night came. I had worked from home that entire day, so when she came home, we watched a movie together, and then I went to bed. So she knew I was home. This was around 9 p.m. An hour in, I hadn't fallen asleep yet when I hear her yelling loudly at her cat about something. She does this sporadically through the night, and I'm mentally thinking, oh no, because it's the middle of the night, and she knows I'm trying to sleep and is yelling at the top of her lungs at the cat, and also slamming the bathroom door whenever she leaves it. I make a note to talk to her about it in the morning and try to go to sleep. The random noises continue, but I'm a heavy sleeper and I'm almost asleep when I hear our front door buzzer go off and someone's at the door. I don't think much of it and assumed maybe she just ordered food. That is until a few minutes later I hear loud moaning coming from somewhere in the apartment. I shoot up in bed because I genuinely can't believe what I'm hearing. And it is loud. Then I text my sister because I don't know what to do at this point. I'm hoping that was a quick slip up and also hoping that there was a man over because the alternate would be especially weird. But the loud moaning continues, and y'all, it's obnoxiously loud. Our apartment isn't that big. She knows I'm home and it's 1 a.m. at this point. So I'm thinking it's coming from her room since it's right next to mine. So I poke my head out my door intending to give a light knock on her door when I realize the noise is actually coming from the living room. It's the second night that she's my roommate, and she's having intimacy with this guy in the living room on my sofa. I'm furious, but also shocked, because I can't believe this is happening. So I ask them if they could stop, because it's late, and they're being loud, because I don't know what to even say in the moment. And they act all embarrassed and cover up, but it's like, y'all weren't embarrassed when you were purposely making all of that noise knowing I'm home? And yes, they left a stain. Anyway, I go to bed, and the next morning I call my mom, aunts, and sister to get some advice, and also have them talk me down. Half of them wants me to kick her out, and the other half says to talk to her and give it a month. So I decide to talk to her, and I would base how I'd move forward, depending on her reaction. I basically tell her that that was extremely disrespectful, and felt that she took advantage of my kindness and the fact that I'm chill, maybe too chill, if she thinks I'd be okay with this, and that something like that cannot ever happen again. Jan was really remorseful and seemed sincere, and she also genuinely seemed embarrassed, and said that she knows it's not an excuse, but she was drunk. I made sure to ask her if she often does impulsive things like that when she's drunk, and she says no. I'm skeptical, and even though I was still weirded out, that someone would think that'd ever be okay, especially your second night as someone's new roommate. But because she seems sincere, I thank her for the apology and try to move past it. Since then, everything's been okay, I guess. She does annoying things that wouldn't bother me as much, but are grating on my nerves and stand out a bit more due to that incident. But still, nothing too out of the way until tonight, which is what prompted me to write this. I went out of town for Memorial Day to visit family. I left on Friday evening and came back tonight on Monday. I was a little worried, but walked into a seemingly well-kept apartment, so I took my suitcase to my room to go to sleep. But when I was rolling past, her door was open and I saw she was using our throw blankets from the living room as her curtains. I was a little annoyed, but again, just made a note to tell her tomorrow morning to put them back in the living room. But then I go to the bathroom and there are stains on the toilet seat. The seat itself is off-center, and there are stains in the toilet bowl. and I had cleaned the toilet before I left, so how did it get this dirty in less than 3 days? The bathroom sink was also dirty. After cleaning the bowl, I go into the kitchen to get a Clorox wipe. To clean the seat, when I see broken glass. My poor pink wine glass, shattered and left in the dish drying rack, and also some shards on the floor. I understand accidents happen, but I thought it was common knowledge to not leave fragile glass in a drying rack with heavier items. And then if you do and it shatters, not to just leave it? And what if I walked in barefoot and cut my foot? She had to have seen the glass. Am I being unreasonable in the level of frustration I now have? Then to top it off, my recycling bin is gone, and so I decide to just text her and ask her where it is, and also if she knows there's broken glass in the dish drying rack. She ignores the glass question and says she's using the recycling container in her room to empty out her stuff. I don't understand why she keeps taking common area things into her room and then not bringing them back out, and then asks me to please be patient with her during the process. Not to mention she's still yelling loudly at the cat and slamming doors still, and it's past 11 p.m. at this point. I feel as if I've been more than patient, possibly too patient. So to be told to be patient after asking a reasonable question and also having her ignore the glass issue sent me over the edge. I want to talk to her at some point today, and I'm wondering if I should in painstaking detail go over boundaries and expectations, or go with my gut and tell her I don't think we're compatible, and that she should plan to move out since she hasn't fully unpacked yet anyway. I don't want to be harsh, but I feel like these are common sense things that I shouldn't even have to set boundaries or establish guidelines for. But my aunt always says common sense ain't so common, so should I give her the benefit of the doubt? I really don't think I should, but I'm also big on letting someone know the problems I have with them before abruptly ending a situation. I'm of the belief that we're all adults and should be able to live without having to set house rules. And I've never had to with my old roommates, and I don't want to be someone's mother. And I don't plan on starting now. But the way things are going, I might have to, or find someone else that I'm more compatible with. Anyway, I would greatly appreciate any advice on this or even what to say to her in the case of letting her know I don't think we should continue living together anymore, of course, giving her 30 days. Now for an update. I really appreciate all of the advice from y'all. I was already pretty set on what I was going to do, and then, about an hour ago, I hear dry heaving, and I come out of my room to check on things, just in time to see her throw up all over my living room, near my bar cart, because she's drunk for some reason at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'm done. I let her clean herself up, and then I tell her that I don't think we're compatible as roommates, and that I'm giving her 30 days to find a new place and move out. Like one of y'all said, she gave me a sob story about how she just found out a couple of days ago. She has a heart condition and begged if I could give her one more month to show she's not like this, because we live in New York, and how it's hard to find a place. And I said I understood and genuinely sympathize about her condition. But that should have been thought of before disrespecting my space and my peace. And the intimacy on the sofa happened before the diagnosis. So it just sounds like an excuse. Then she called me disrespectful. And I pointed out that that's untrue, and that I've been more than fair and patient in all of this. She isn't taking it well. And while I'm in my room, I hear her walking around yelling out that she's a dumb witch, and that she doesn't want to be around me, and that she can't stand me and slamming doors, even louder than she normally does. My aunt is flying up here tomorrow to stay with me for a while, just to be sure nothing goes too south. I'm honestly exhausted. At least I have some new questions to add when I'm vetting roommates. Like, do you have a drinking problem, haha? Appreciate y'all. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Double check everything on the lease agreement, or any agreement you have with her, to make sure you can evict her in 30 days. She might be the type that would try to squat or do something stupid like damage the place. Comment 2. She is 27 years old. She should know how to respect others' belongings and time. Give her the 30-day notice saying, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We aren't compatible as roommates. If she wants specifics, kindly let her know what they are. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I'm at my wit's end and desperately need any advice anyone could offer. So, after I told Jan she had 30 days to move out, things got even more complicated. The day after our confrontation, I came home from work to find Jan sitting on the couch, looking unusually calm. She apologized again for her behavior and said she wanted to make things right. She even offered to pay for a professional cleaning service to come in and clean the apartment. I was skeptical, but agreed, thinking it might be a step in the right direction. The cleaning service came the next day, and the apartment looked spotless. For a moment, I thought maybe things could improve, but that night, I found out something that changed everything. I was going through some old mail on the kitchen counter when I found a letter addressed to Jan. It was from a rehab center, confirming her enrollment in a program starting in 2 weeks. My heart sank. I realized Jan had a serious problem, and it wasn't just about her being a bad roommate. She was struggling with addiction. I didn't know what to do. On one hand, I felt sorry for her and wanted to help. On the other hand, I couldn't ignore the fact that her behavior was making my life miserable. I decided to talk to her about it. When I confronted her, she broke down in tears and admitted everything. She said she had been struggling with alcohol addiction for years and had recently relapsed. She begged me to let her stay until she could get into the rehab program. I was torn. I wanted to help her, but I also needed to protect my own well-being. I told her I needed some time to think about it. That night, I called my mom and my sister to get their advice. They both had different opinions. My mom thought I should let her stay and support her through this tough time. My sister, on the other hand, thought I should stick to my original decision and have her move out. The next few days were tense. Jan tried to keep a low profile, but I could tell she was struggling. One night, I came home to find her passed out on the couch with an empty bottle of vodka next to her. I knew I couldn't let this continue. I decided to give her an ultimatum. Either she checks into rehab immediately, or she has to leave. Jan chose to go to rehab. She packed her bags and left the next day. I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I hoped she would get the help she needed, but I also felt like I had abandoned her in her time of need. The apartment was quiet for the first time in weeks, but it didn't feel like a victory. A few days later, I received a call from Jan's sister. She thanked me for helping Jan and said she was doing well in rehab. She also told me something that shocked me. Jan had been in a hurtful relationship for years, and her addiction was a way to cope with the trauma. I felt a pang of guilt for not knowing the full story, and for not being more understanding. As I processed everything, I started to think about my own life and my own struggles. I realized that I had been so focused on finding the perfect roommate that I had ignored my own needs and boundaries. I decided to take some time for myself and focus on my own well-being. I also started to think about my past roommates and how different they were from Jan. I remembered my first roommate in college, who was always there to listen and support me. I thought about my last roommate, who had become one of my closest friends. I realized that I had been lucky to have such great roommates in the past, and that maybe I had taken that for granted. As I reflected on my own experiences, I started to understand John a little better. I realized that everyone has their own struggles and that sometimes people just need a little compassion and understanding. I decided to reach out to Jan's sister and offer my support. I told her that if Jan ever needed a place to stay after rehab, she could come back to the apartment. In the meantime, I decided to take a break from having roommates and focus on myself. I started going to therapy to work through my own issues and set better boundaries for myself. I also started to reconnect with old friends and family who had been my support system all along. As I write this, I feel a sense of closure. I know that I made the right decision for myself, but I also know that I did my best to help Jan. I hope she gets the help she needs and that she can find peace and happiness in her life. And I hope that I can continue to grow and learn from this experience. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to let my boyfriend's overbearing mother move in with us? Last week, my boyfriend's mother visited for 7 days. I am an introvert, and his mother has the exact opposite personality. She is loud, talks nonstop all day, constantly requires attention to tell stories, and show us random billboards on the side of the road, etc. Previous visits have gone all right, however. I always feel drained and overwhelmed by the end. Before the trip, we laid out some expectations. My boyfriend said I could take as much time as I need away from his mother to recharge. I could go to the gym, take my online class, apply for jobs. I'm currently unemployed but actively looking because we just relocated to a new city, etc. When his mom arrived and we started our activities for the week, it quickly became apparent that I would not be getting many opportunities to recharge. He took some days off work, during which we all spent time together exploring the city. On the one day he went to the office, his mom needed help navigating the city, so I went with her and showed her around. In the evenings and the weekend, we took trips and did a lot of activities together. It was mostly fun, but exhausting. Throughout the week, I noticed some unsettling undertones in how his mom treated me, which I hadn't picked up on before. Nothing big, but overall she acted a little coldly towards me. When choosing restaurants to eat at, knowing I don't eat seafood at all for personal reasons, she decided on oyster bars and sushi restaurants 4 times during the week. Then at the restaurant, she kept bringing up that I didn't order anything with seafood, why I won't just try something if my meal was too spicy for me. And she asked if I only eat chicken breast. At one point, after she fed our dog an oyster, she said the dog needs to teach me to be more open-minded and try new things. It really bothers me when people point out my eating habits. I've struggled with an eating disorder in the past, and I hate when people always ask why I won't just try seafood. You wouldn't ask a vegetarian to just try meat, so stop trying to get me to eat oysters. She also crossed some boundaries. For instance, when my boyfriend and I were cleaning the kitchen, she went to our bedroom without telling us and started cleaning there. She dug under the bed and put our bottle of lube and Zaza joints on the windowsill. I had purposely hidden them so she wouldn't see them. When I went to see what she was doing in our room, I noticed her going through my backpack where I keep some personal things. By the last day, I told my boyfriend I wasn't sure if I wanted to go on our day trip because I was so exhausted from the week. I could tell he was frustrated because he flat out ignored me. Then went to the grocery store. I texted him and he responded that he didn't want me to go on the day trip anyway. I eventually decided to go because he was upset and acting distant, and I was afraid it would get worse if I didn't go. During the day trip, I brought up to my boyfriend an event happening that night that we had been wanting to see. We had talked about it before, didn't make definite plans to go since his mom is in town, but we'd never been to this venue and wanted to try it out, and this was the last chance before our summer trip. He said we might actually be able to go since his mom flies out the next day, and presumably we could leave for a couple of hours after she goes to bed. I was getting my hopes up for this because it had been a long, difficult week, and finally we could go out and do something just the two of us. We spent the rest of the day with his mom, ate more seafood, and by the time 11 p.m. rolled around, he was on the couch, his mom fast asleep next to him. Not wanting to wake her, I texted him asking if we could go out to this venue, and he replied saying, "No, I don't want to. I want to stay in." My mom is waking up in a few hours and she wants to spend some time with me. At this point, I got so frustrated because we had been spending the whole 7 days with his mom. And when we spoke earlier, it seemed like he was genuinely open to going. I replied with a lot of texts expressing my frustrations of the week and asking why he needed to stay on the couch for the night while his mom slept. He said he didn't want to hurt her by leaving her on the couch. I was frustrated while texting him, and even though I felt like I was led on by him about an event I was getting my hopes up for, I kept my cool and communicated my feelings as clearly and concisely as possible. My boyfriend got really defensive and started saying some hurtful things, for example. He said I was throwing a tantrum and acting like a child because I didn't get to go out. I reread the texts later to reflect and still think I was pretty reasonable with the thoughts, feelings, and questions I communicated. And the main reason I was frustrated was not because I didn't get to go out, but because of how exhausting his mom was and how cold she was to me. He told me repeatedly that I am a weak person if this last week was so hard for me, and I need to grow thicker skin. He called me a red flag for saying that I had a hard time while his mom was here. He called me insane. He told me I couldn't have possibly had a difficult week when I don't have a job and have everything paid for. I hate when he throws this point at me because I sacrificed my high-paying job so he could take this opportunity in a new city, and we agreed he could be the sole earner while I look for a job. He told me some negative things his mom said about me behind my back. After half an hour of insults like this, I started having a panic attack and told him I was freaking out and needed help calming down. We went outside to talk where he continued insulting my character while I cried. I felt so broken and worthless. I felt I had done more than my part in spending time with his mom. I could use some advice. There's a pattern in our relationship where I get insulted after I express feelings that my boyfriend doesn't like. I've tried multiple approaches, but it often ends the same. He gets so angry and starts insulting me. I really can't handle that kind of feedback from my partner, who is currently 100% of my support system. Now that we're in a new city, how can I get through to him to stop insulting me when he's angry? Is it normal to refuse to leave your mom's side while she sleeps on the couch for the night so you don't hurt her feelings? Apparently they hugged for a while and she didn't want to sleep alone. Maybe my family's different, so I can't understand. But I have no idea why a man in his id-30s male can't leave his mom's side while she sleeps at the risk she might get hurt, not even to go out to an event. I had gotten over that part pretty quickly, but I expected him to come to bed after his mom went to bed. This seems creepy to me in ways I can't really explain. This level of codependence just seems weird. I feel like I can't bring up this concern because his close relationship with his mom is a touchy subject, and he usually gets angry when I ask questions about it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This level of codependence just seems weird. That's because ... IT is. If she's trotting around the city, I doubt she's going to fall off the couch and damage herself. He's too attached to his mom and nasty to you. I think it's not only this weak ... IT quote s the totality of your relationship. Take a hard look at your relationship and deeply reflect to see if it's what you really want and see for your future. Comment 2. The most important takeaway from this should be that your boyfriend isn't going to stand up to his mom ever. She will be a constant in your life for the rest of her life or for as long as you choose to stay in this relationship. How to move forward is up to you, but this would make most people reconsider the relationship. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments from the last post. After that exhausting week with my boyfriend's mom, things have only gotten more complicated. A few weeks after she left, I noticed my boyfriend becoming more distant. He started coming home later from work and spending more time on his phone. I tried to talk to him about it, but he brushed me off, saying he was just stressed from work. One evening, I decided to confront him about his behavior. He admitted that his mom had been calling him almost every day, complaining about me. She told him that I was rude and ungrateful during her visit and that I didn't make enough effort to bond with her. This was a shock to me, because I thought I had done my best to be accommodating, despite feeling overwhelmed. I tried to explain my side of the story, but my boyfriend seemed more inclined to believe his mom. He said that I needed to make more of an effort to get along with her, and that I should apologize for my behavior. This felt like a slap in the face, considering how much I had already sacrificed for him and his family. A few days later, my boyfriend suggested that we invite his mom to stay with us for a month. He said it would be a good opportunity for us to bond and for me to show her that I was willing to make an effort. I was horrified at the idea, but he insisted that it was necessary for the sake of our relationship. I felt trapped and didn't know what to do. No, I decided to reach out to my best friend for advice. She was shocked by my boyfriend's suggestion and told me that it was unreasonable for him to expect me to put up with his mom's behavior for an entire month. She reminded me that I had already done more than enough to accommodate her during her last visit, and that it was unfair for my boyfriend to put all the blame on me. Feeling more confident, I decided to stand my ground. I told my boyfriend that I wasn't comfortable with his mom staying with us for a month, and that we needed to find a compromise. He was furious and accused me of being selfish and not caring about his family. This led to a huge argument, and he stormed out of the apartment. The next day, my boyfriend came home and apologized for his outburst. He said that he understood my concerns and that we could find another way to improve my relationship with his mom. However, he still insisted that I needed to apologize to her for my behavior during her last visit. I reluctantly agreed, hoping that it would help to ease the tension. I called his mom and apologized for any misunderstandings during her visit. She seemed to accept my apology, but I could tell that she still held some resentment towards me. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to please both my boyfriend and his mom. A few weeks later, my boyfriend's mom invited us to her house for a family gathering. I was nervous about seeing her again, but I agreed to go, hoping that it would help to improve our relationship. The gathering started off well, but things quickly took a turn for the worse. During dinner, my boyfriend's mom made several passive-aggressive comments about my eating habits and my job search. She even brought up the incident with the lube and Zaza joints, making me feel humiliated in front of his family. I tried to stay calm and composed, but I could feel my anxiety rising. After dinner, I pulled my boyfriend aside and told him how upset I was by his mom's behavior. He seemed sympathetic at first, but then he started defending her, saying that she was just trying to help me improve myself. This led to another argument, and I felt like I was at my breaking point. The next day, I decided to take some time for myself and went for a long walk to clear my head. I realized that I couldn't continue living like this, constantly trying to please my boyfriend and his mom while neglecting my own needs and well-being. I knew that I needed to make a hard choice. When I got home, I sat down with my boyfriend and told him how I felt. I explained that I couldn't continue in a relationship where I was constantly being criticized and belittled by his mom, and where he didn't have my back. I told him that I needed him to set boundaries with his mom and to support me, or I would have to reconsider our relationship. He was taken aback by my ultimatum and tried to convince me that things would get better. But I stood my ground, knowing that I deserved to be treated with respect and understanding. He finally agreed to talk to his mom and set some boundaries, but I could tell that he was still conflicted. In the weeks that followed, my boyfriend made an effort to support me more and to set boundaries with his mom. However, the tension between us remained, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was on shaky ground. I started to question whether we were truly compatible and if our relationship was worth all the stress and heartache. One evening, while we were watching TV, my boyfriend received a call from his mom. He stepped outside to take the call, and I could hear them arguing. When he came back inside, he looked defeated and told me that his mom was upset about the boundaries he had set. She felt like he was choosing me over her and that she was being pushed out of his life. This was the breaking point for me. I realized that no matter how much we tried to make things work, his mom would always be a source of conflict in our relationship. I couldn't continue living in a constant state of anxiety and stress, trying to please everyone but myself. I told my boyfriend that I needed some time apart to think about our relationship and what I wanted for my future. He was devastated, but he understood that I needed to take care of myself. We agreed to take a break and to reevaluate our relationship in a few weeks. During this time apart, I focused on my job search and on taking care of my mental health. I realized that I'd been neglecting my own needs and well-being for too long, trying to make everyone else happy. I knew that I needed to prioritize myself and to find a relationship where I felt supported and valued. When my boyfriend and I finally sat down to talk, I told him that I couldn't continue in a relationship where I felt constantly criticized and unsupported. He was heartbroken, but he understood that I needed to do what was best for me. We decided to part ways and to focus on our own individual growth and happiness. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my partner to grow up and face our problems instead of running to his mom? My boyfriend and I have been together for about 7 years. We have one child, 4-year-old, which isn't necessarily relevant here, but figured it's worth noting since we've had to do a lot of growing up. Not a lot of normal and fun 20-something-year-old stuff. When we first started dating, we could have intimacy for hours. I mean, we were young and in love, and still are. But now we're mostly boring, and we were just doing whatever we wanted. We didn't live together, so it was always so fun having sleepovers and seeing each other. I mean, you get it. The honeymoon phase is a dream. Over the last couple of years, our quality time together, just the two of us, has really dwindled. I'm the type to really want to be connected. I want emotional intimacy so that I can feel intimacy. I want all the intimacy. But we're busy, both working full-time and balancing family, work, kid stuff. It's hard and stressful, and we're happy, but we're not connecting. He works weekends when I'm home. I work all week while he's home, 2 weekdays. We just seem to keep missing each other. As far as intimacy goes, we definitely have it, but not as often as we'd both like. Him especially, I'm sure. And when we do, it's always quickies. A few days ago, we discussed this, and it got almost intense. It was after we had intimacy, and he said it was a turnoff that I call them quickies. Want to have a quickie? and that he thinks I just don't like to have intimacy because I like to keep it short. For me, this couldn't be further from the truth. I'd rather do it quick than not at all, and we're both exhausted. He said we used to do it for hours, that we should be doing it like that all the time. And the more we talked about it, the more upset I got. He said we don't do it enough. I say it's once a week. He says once every 2. But I digress. I told him I'd be more willing to do it more often and more connected if I felt that connection still. We never spend any time together, even after our child is asleep. Haven't been on a date in 2 years. And the only time he tries to spend with me, he's usually trying to initiate, so it doesn't feel the same. There were some harsh words, blaming each other, and it just all feels so silly. I'd say we have intimacy for 20, 30 minutes. Not nearly a real quickium, but it feels like it's not enough. He's not willing to accept that I'd be interested more often if we were spending time together. And I'm not willing to say, sure, let's have intimacy for hours, even though I have to get up at 5 a.m. and have hundreds of responsibilities. I just feel like I'm at a loss, and it doesn't seem reasonable. We've barely spoken since the whole exchange, and I feel like maybe this is bigger. Maybe I'm just not enough anymore. I don't even really understand what he was getting at. I want to, though. How long are you guys having intimacy? How often? And how can I approach this, try to meet him in the middle? We're still young. I don't want to feel like this in our relationship. I just want to feel like us again. But I don't think the answer is having intimacy for hours. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. With you mentioning that you haven't been on a date for 2 years, I think you guys probably should start planning alone time for each other. Whether it's a day, an hour, one time out of the week, every 2 weeks, etc. Whatever works for you both. I'm assuming you guys have different love languages, and I think you probably should delve into that more, to feel the spark again. It sounds like your schedules don't even align with each other. Is there a way you two could compromise each other's schedules, so that way you two can have more days off together? Comment 2. Intimacy is a connection for many men, so this becomes a vicious circle. You want connection to have intimacy, and he wants intimacy to have connection. He will have to accept that intimacy marathons are a thing of the past. But he will need to know that this isn't because you're less sexually interested in him. This is hard to communicate if you're having intimacy once every fortnight. And at that rate, it's difficult for him to feel the connection he needs in order to show you the connection you want. Someone needs to budge to break the impasse. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks since I last shared what was going on with my boyfriend and me. After our intense conversation, things were pretty tense between us. We were barely speaking and the atmosphere at home was awkward. I decided to take the first step and suggested we go to couples therapy. He was hesitant at first, but eventually he agreed. We had our first session last week and it was eye-opening. The therapist helped us see that our issues were more about communication and less about the actual frequency or duration of intimacy. She pointed out that we both had unmet needs and that we needed to find a way to meet in the middle. During the session, my boyfriend admitted that he felt neglected and unappreciated. He said that he missed the days when we were more spontaneous and carefree. I realized that I had been so focused on our responsibilities and routines that I had forgotten to make time for us as a couple. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it made sense. I also shared my feelings of wanting more emotional intimacy and how I felt like we were just going through the motions. The therapist suggested that we start by scheduling regular date nights, even if it's just at home after our child goes to bed. We decided to give it a try. Last Friday, we had our first at-home date night. We put our child to bed, ordered takeout, and watched a movie together. It felt nice to just relax and enjoy each other's company without any pressure. We didn't have intimacy that night, but it felt like a step in the right direction. The next day, my boyfriend surprised me by arranging for his mom to watch our child so we could go out for dinner. It was our first real date in 2 years, and it was amazing. We talked, laughed, and reconnected in a way we hadn't in a long time. But then, something unexpected happened. During dinner, my boyfriend ran into an old friend from high school. They started chatting, and I could see the excitement in his eyes. It turns out, this friend had recently gone through a divorce and was in town for a few days. My boyfriend invited him over for a drink the next evening, and I agreed. thinking it would be nice for him to catch up with an old friend. The next evening, his friend came over, and they spent hours reminiscing about the past. I joined them for a while, but I started to feel like a third wheel. I excused myself and went to bed, leaving them to their conversation. The next morning, my boyfriend seemed distant again. I asked him what was wrong, and he said that talking to his friend had made him realize how much he missed his old life. He said he felt like he had lost a part of himself since becoming a father and that he didn't know how to get it back. This hit me hard. I felt like I had been doing everything I could to make our relationship work. And now he was telling me that he missed his old life. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. He said he needed some time to think and that he was going to stay with his mom for a few days. I was devastated, but I agreed, hoping that some time apart would help him clear his head. While he was gone, I had a lot of time to think. I realized that I had been so focused on our relationship and our child that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I decided to start doing things that made me happy, like reading, going for walks, and spending time with friends. It felt good to focus on myself for a change, and it gave me a new perspective on our relationship. When my boyfriend came back, he seemed more relaxed. He said that he had done a lot of thinking, and that he realized he didn't want to go back to his old life. He said he loved me and our child, and that he wanted to make things work. We had a long talk about our future, and what we both needed to feel happy and fulfilled. We agreed to keep going to therapy and to keep making time for each other. But before I tell you more about our plans, there's something else I need to share. While my boyfriend was staying with his mom, I found an old journal of his. I know I shouldn't have read it, but curiosity got the best of me. In it, he had written about his fears and insecurities, including his fear of not being a good enough partner and father. It broke my heart to read, but it also made me realize how much pressure he was putting on himself. I decided not to tell him that I had read it, but it gave me a new understanding of his struggles. We're still working through our issues, but things are starting to look up. We've had a few more date nights, and we're trying to be more open and honest with each other. It's not easy, but I feel like we're on the right track. I'm hopeful that we can get back to a place where we both feel happy and connected. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.